The Life of W. H. Auden. Wystan Hugh Auden was born in York, England in 1907. He moved to Birmingham during childhood and was educated at Christ Church, Oxford. As a young man, he was influenced by the poetry of Thomas Hardy and Robert Frost, as well as William Blake, Emily Dickinson, Gerard Manley Hopkins, and Old English verse. At Oxford, his precocity as a poet was immediately apparent, and he formed lifelong friendships with two fellow writers, Stephen Spender and Christopher Isherwood. In 1928, his collection, Poems, was privately printed, but it wasn't until 1930, when another collection titled Poems was published, that Auden was established as the leading voice of a new generation. Ever since then, he has been admired for his unsurpassed technical virtuosity and an ability to write poems in nearly every imaginable verse form. The incorporation in his work of popular culture, current events, and vernacular speech, and also for the vast range of his intellect, which drew easily from an extraordinary variety of literatures, art forms, social and political theories, and scientific and technical information. W. H. Auden died on the 28th of September in 1973 in Vienna. Petition by W. H. Auden. Sir, no man's enemy, forgiving all, but will his negative inversion be prodigal. Send us power and light, a sovereign touch, curing the intolerable neural itch, the exhaustion of weaning, the liar's quinsy, and the distortions of ingrown virginity. Prohibit sharply the rehearsed response, and gradually correct the coward's stance. Cover in time with beams those in retreat, that spotted they turned though the reverse were great. Publish each healer that in city lives, or country houses at the end of drives. Harrow the house of the dead, look shining at new styles of architecture, a change of heart. Literary criticism. In the winter of 1995, the Hudson Review published an article about W. H. Auden by Alan Jacobs titled, Auden's Local Culture. According to Jacobs, Auden understood both the costs and benefits of choosing to cultivate local knowledge and local attachments better than almost any political thinker writing about such issues today. Throughout Auden's life and works, his religious faith also played a major role and influenced his writings to a great extent. Arthur Kirsch, former professor of English at the University of Virginia, writes in his book Auden and Christianity that Auden was an individual within whom thought and faith not only coexisted but indeed nourished each other. Kirsch's book also explains how Auden's religious faith helped him to come to terms with himself as an artist and as a man, despite his early disinterest in religion. It's no surprise that Auden's Anglican faith informs and is often the explicit subject of his poetry and prose. Analysis. Petition serves as an open letter to God from the speaker. The poem itself, which is a Latinate prayer in essential meter, includes a speaker who beseeches a merciful God not to permit too much human weakness. Auden begins his poem with a direct reference to God, calling him Sir. The person being addressed is described by Auden as being no man's enemy and forgiving of all. Thus, Auden confirms for his audience that this is indeed a reference to God. The speaker prefaces the following lines by asking God to permit the negative inversion of humanity. In doing so, he apparently asks God also to be prodigal or reckless. In other words, The speaker wants God to allow some extent of anomaly in man. The speaker here appeals to God that he may send humanity some sort of strength to overcome human weakness. He wants God to interact with the world more in order to correct the problems which were being faced at the time. The intolerable neural itch is likely a reference to man's tendency to sin or cause evil to himself and to the world. The speaker wants God to eliminate this tendency, which would subsequently eliminate evil humans. Weaning is the act of substituting other food for the mother's milk in the diet of a child. A quinsy is an inflammation of the tonsils. Continuing with what the speaker wants God to cure, the speaker expresses frustration with humanity's struggle to move away from weakness and evil, the weaning. The reference to quinsy may just be associating a liar with a person who has an infected mouth. This too the speaker wants cured. The word virginity is often associated with the condition of not having had sex. However, in this context, it may actually mean the condition of possessing inner purity, suggested by the word ingrown. This entire line may also be a reference to social taboos in general, which the speaker also wants eliminated. In reference to rehearsed responses, the speaker here refers to excuses that sinful people give when criticized or questioned about their behavior. He asks that God silence these excuses and force these people to make a genuine change in character. Here, Auden suggests that a coward stands in an awkward manner, judging by the speaker's desire for God to correct such a stance. However, this line is not to be taken literally, as the speaker merely asks God to eliminate fear from humanity. The substance of this line is virtually the same as the last. The speaker wants God to gradually eliminate fear from humanity. The word beams may be a reference to beams of light which come down from clouds and cover people like a blanket, an image normally associated with God interacting with people. This line also simply builds on the idea from the line before. The speaker pokes fun at people retreating, indicating that they act as though the reverse were great. In other words, he is simply expressing his disgust with the human nature to be afraid and retreat from danger. In these two lines, the speaker pleads with God that he may grant healers or intelligent people who can fix the problems of the world to emerge from various areas of society. Thus, he asks for further interaction between God and man. In these last two lines of the poem, the speaker asks God to treat old methods, or houses of the dead, with ignorance. He wants God to look at new styles of architecture, or new methods of rebuilding society, which would consequently be a change of heart for the whole world. In sum, the speaker is asking God to interact with man in order to establish a new method of reacting to problems in order to eliminate human sin and fear from the world, and bring it closer to God in general. Thank you.